Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. That's really wonderful. Okay, so let's get down to business. I want to thank everybody for being here first and foremost. You guys are phenomenal. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being part of this great event, and thank you for the work that you do on an individual basis to bring the truth forward. My presentation here today is entitled Duress, Dissidence, and Deadly Force. And I just want to take a moment to ask people to put themselves in a state of mind to really be prepared to hear some heavy information in this presentation. It's going to be tough for some people to hear some of the things I'm going to say today. So this is not done lightly. This is should be received with a somber state of mind and a sobering state of mind. And there are certain things I'm going to talk about that some people don't even want to envision. However, we have to consider them and hold them in our psychological makeup as potentialities. They're potentialities I don't want to see manifest in the world, never have. But we have to be prepared that they may manifest. So with that being said, let's jump into the topic. I dedicate this presentation in its entirety to the memory of Samuel Adams. Samuel Adams, perhaps more than anybody else, is the person that I historically, personally identify with, because perhaps single-handedly, this man began the American Revolution. He was probably the most influential soul of that time period as far as bringing people to action. He exercised the call to action more than anyone else. He was called by the British the chief conspirator. As a matter of fact, the American Revolution was referred to by some people in England and some of the Tories in America as the Adams Conspiracy. John Adams, when he traveled to Europe, was often asked, especially when he went to France, "Are you the famous Adams?" And he had to respond, "No, I'm not. That's Samuel Adams." So Samuel Adams said, "The truth is, all might be free if they valued freedom and defended it as they ought." Freedom has to be valued and defended. And that is why we're in the situation that we are in as a people, because truth isn't valued and defended enough. So this presentation is not for very young people, not for children, and it's certainly not for the easily offended. So if you have that sensibility about you, now's the time to leave. I think no one here will be easily offended. I think, we're all in the room because we recognize the information that I'm about to speak here today is vitally important to understand. I speak publicly because I recognize that in the crisis that we're in right now, I have a moral obligation to communicate what I know to be taking place in our world to other people, to help them to understand it as well, so they can take action and do something about it. This is a call to action, ladies and gentlemen. And the bad news is this is still the mindset of the vast majority of humanity. And that's the best image that I could find to sum up what I think of the human mindset in the aggregate. It certainly doesn't apply to the people in this room, as I've said, but this is where Earth is at. The people of Earth are right there, firmly right there, okay? And they need to extricate themselves from that position. And otherwise, we're going to be coming down to the very serious consequences I'm going to be talking about. Manly P. Hall said that it is not the wrath of the Almighty, but the stupidity of man that is causing all the trouble. And if people are not familiar with this man's work, I mean, you need to become so, because he was absolutely a brilliant philosopher, an occultist, a de-occultist, as far as I'm concerned. And he has some of the best work that I've ever taken in that really helped to open up my mind and wake me up. This is the human condition, ladies and gentlemen. The human condition, whether anyone has recognized it or not, or accepted it or not, is slavery. And see, I'm not going to sugarcoat words. Never have, never will. I'm going to come out and say it just as it is in plain language, regardless of who likes it or not. The whole idea of true spirituality, the whole goal of true spirituality is the ending of the human condition called slavery. It's never been okay. It's not okay now. It never will be okay. It's completely immoral, and the people who continue to perform the actions that hold the human condition in this state or support and condone those actions are immoral people. And we are the people who need to reach out to those people that can be helped and change their mindset. That's what the great work is. People will say, well, there's many, many, many paths to freedom and spirituality. But I'll take umbrage with that statement. There are many paths that can get you to an understanding of what the solution is, but there's only one real, true solution. And this can sound dogmatic to people. It can even sound religious to people. And I try to explain to people in all my work, I'm not dogmatic, I'm not religious. To say something to the effect of, do you believe in natural law, or do you think it's some type of religious dogma, is as ridiculous as asking someone if they believe, if I hold an object up and then let it go, will it fall downward? There is no dogma or religious belief required for that. It's law in the universe. Well, behavior is also bound by law. This is the problem with the human ego, though. The human ego refuses to accept that behavior is bound by law. And we want to think we can do anything we want as long as we don't get caught. The only solution is the understanding of natural law and how we are inextricably forever bound by it. We have free will to choose our behavior, but we do not have free will to be insulated from the consequences of our choices in free will. Natural law is the most occulted information that needs to be understood by humanity, and there is very little progress in propagating a worldwide understanding of natural law to the body of humanity. That's what our work is, folks. That's what the work of the people in this room and the people who do understand this, listening out there on the internet, is. We have to become teachers of this information. I naively thought in my early days of doing this that there would be at least 1 million to 10 million teachers of natural law in the world by this point after doing this for a decade. And I can count them on 2 hands. The good ones, the ones who are doing it effectively. You know, it's not, our efforts are not enough. That's the thing that I want to convey to the people in this room and listening who do understand my work. The effort has to be advanced and stepped up. We need to become teachers of this information to everyone within earshot of our voices, or humanity is going to go down the path I'm going to talk about, which is going to be very, very, very ugly. Natural law is a set of universal, inherent, objective, non-man-made, eternal, and immutable conditions which govern the consequences of behaviors of beings with the capacity for understanding the difference between harmful and non-harmful behavior. That means it applies to intelligent beings who have a developed brain and nervous system like we do, okay? It doesn't apply to lesser beings, to the animal kingdom. They're not going to sit there and reason. We have the capacity for reason. They're instinctual creatures. They have emotions as well. But we have higher thought functions. That's why natural law applies to us. The behavioral laws of creation apply to humans and more advanced beings, because we have the capacity for understanding morality. A worldwide common sense understanding of true objective morality and the laws that govern behavioral consequence is the only true solution to the current human condition of slavery. For as long as humanity remains ignorant of the occulted knowledge of natural law, it will remain enslaved. And that is by law, by universal cosmic law. By no laws of man will it remain enslaved. It will be enslaved by the laws of creation. For those who are not familiar with my work regarding natural law, I absolutely encourage everyone to watch my 3-part video series called Natural Law, the Real Law of Attraction and How to Apply It in Your Life. What natural law is all about is the objective difference between right behavior and wrong behavior. I always tell people that, we use the same word to communicate the idea of correct and moral. We use the word right to communicate those concepts. Correct means based in truth. And moral means that it is in harmony with natural law principles, because when you take a right action, the result of that action does not result in harm to other beings, to other sentient beings. Conversely, wrong behavior is both incorrect and immoral. Incorrect meaning it is not based in truth, and immoral meaning it is in opposition to natural law, because when we take wrong behaviors, someone is harmed as a result of that behavior, of that behavioral choice. The problem is, folks, most people still in the year 2018, sad as though it may be to say, cannot properly define a right. They cannot give you the definition of what a right behavior is. And that's why we're losing our rights. Because they do not understand that a right is an action that does not cause harm to another sentient being. And that is the definition, and it is as simple as that. I've rewatched the movie K-Pax recently. And it's about an alien being that comes to the earth and interacts with, the primitive human beings that can't understand his mindset. And when he's asked if his planet has a government, he says, "We have no need for a government." And he's like, "Well, how do your people know right from wrong?" And his answer is, "Every being in the universe knows the difference between right and wrong." That's the real answer to that question. This should be common sense knowledge, but we're so backwards as a species that I need a 9-hour presentation to explain to brainwashed people what the difference between right and wrong behavior is. I've said in past presentations, sometimes I sit up at night and laugh at the ridiculousness of what I do. Really. I laugh at how ridiculous having to present basic information like this is. And yet the majority of human beings, it's falling on deaf ears. The following actions are examples of the initiation of aggression against others, which is what all wrongdoings are. These actions are violations against natural rights and therefore constitute violence. Murder, assault, rape, theft, trespass, and coercion. And you could think all you want about any wrongdoing that can possibly be committed. I've challenged many, many people to do this, and you will recognize every single wrongdoing that can be committed against another human being is a form of theft. There is only one wrong, theft, in one form or another, and there is only one law in the universe. Don't steal. That's it. Every wrongdoing comes down to an act of theft. Provably. Murder is the taking without just cause of the life of another, which does not belong to you. Assault is the taking without just cause of another being's physical well-being, which does not belong to you. Rape is the taking of another's free will sexual consent, which does not belong to you. Theft is the taking of property, physical property, which does not belong to you. Trespass is the taking of the security of another person in their domain, in their dwelling place, which does not belong to you to take. Coercion is the taking of another being's free will, which does not belong to you to take. Every wrongdoing is a form of theft. There's no wrongdoing anyone can think of that is not a form of theft. Natural law versus man's law. Natural law is based upon principles and truth which are inherent to creation. Man's law is based upon dogmatic belief systems which are the constructs of a diseased mind. Natural law is only ever harmonized with due to knowledge and understanding. or not harmonized with due to ignorance. Man's law, on the other hand, is only complied with due to fear of punishment. Natural law is universal. It exists and applies anywhere in the universe, regardless of location. Man's law differs with location based upon the whim of the legislators who are making up these decrees and commands. And that is a form of moral relativism, the idea that we can decide what right and wrong are, that they are not objective and inherent to creation because they are based upon actions. Natural law is eternal and immutable. That means it exists and applies for as long as the universe exists, and it cannot ever be changed by any action that any being within the universe can do. Man's law, on the other hand, changes with time based upon the whim of legislators, which is also moral relativism. If a man-made law is in harmony with natural law, it follows logically that it is redundant, since it is stating a truth that is inherent, pre-existing, eternal, and self-evident, or it should be self-evident. Therefore, man's law is both irrelevant and unnecessary. If a man-made law is in opposition to natural law, it follows logically that it is both false, meaning it is incorrect, and it is immoral, meaning it is harmful. It results in harm to other beings. Or in other words, it's wrong. Therefore, man's law that is in opposition to natural law can never be legitimately binding upon anyone. Therefore, I say throw all of man's law out. We don't need it. We only need to understand and bring our behavior into compliance with natural law. That's it. And then we would experience a society based in freedom. Because as we engage in moral behavior, a society in the aggregate becomes more free. And as we engage in immoral behavior, a society in the aggregate becomes more enslaved. That is the natural law of freedom. There is a law that governs the freedom of a whole society. As morality increases, freedom increases. As morality declines, freedom declines. There's only one true divide in all of humanity, only one thing that really separates human beings into two groups. This is what I call the true dialectic or the true divide. There's only one divide that separates humanity into two distinct types of individuals. The criterion for this divide is whether or not an individual believes in the concept of authority and therefore believes that there is legitimacy to slavery. Because that is what authority is. That is what the belief in authority is. It is the belief in the legitimacy of slavery. The only difference between human beings is whether they are a statist or an anarchist. There is no other difference. And I don't mean like characteristics and personality. I'm talking about things that actually, truly separate us into two camps of beings. The statist says he has the brilliant idea that we give a small group of people the right to kidnap, imprison, harass, steal from, and kill people so that we can be protected from people who kidnap, harass, steal from, and kill people. Brilliant ideology. It's working out so well, don't you think? Our rights are protected, we're prosperous, we're free. It's just a flawless idea that's working out wonderfully. I was looking, I have told this anecdote in the past, I was looking for a picture of an anarchist, and you're not going to see any pictures of people in the quote-unquote anarchist movement. I'm not going to single out anybody, least of all myself, to put a picture and say they're the quintessential anarchist. So I was going through images and I found this meme with Jesus as the anarchist saying, I'm an anarchist, but most of my followers are statists. And nothing could be more true. The fake-ass Christian religionists that all believe in the authority of government and have this, dissonance in their mind that somehow, God could be an authority bringing the laws of behavior and the universe upon people, and yet we can still have authority vested in man. This idea of serving two masters. A statist is an individual who erroneously believes that there is such a thing as authority vested in certain human beings, which magically gives them the right to rule over other people. This, quote, authority means that certain people who we call government, the masters, have the moral right, quote unquote, to issue commands to those whom they rule, and those under their, quote, jurisdiction, which literally means the law is what I say it is. Literally in its etymological roots. These people are their slaves who have a moral obligation to obey the arbitrary dictates, the laws set by their masters. And most simply put, when we really strip away all the euphemism, a statist is simply someone who believes in the legitimacy of slavery. And that makes them, by definition, immoral. Conversely, an anarchist is one who knows that there could never be legitimacy to authority or government because those terms are simply euphemisms for coercion, violence, and slavery, which are always immoral and therefore are always in opposition to natural law, the universal spiritual moral laws of creation. The problem is people don't understand the meaning of true anarchy. I'm not talking about, people who call themselves anarchists, folks. When I'm using the term anarchy here, I'm talking about true anarchy and true anarchists. And there's only one real kind of anarchist, and that is the anarchist that understands all authority, all government is slavery, and the only solution is moral behavior under natural law. That's what an anarchist really is. The word anarchy comes from the Greek prefix an, meaning without, the absence of, and the Greek noun archon, meaning master or ruler. Anarchy does not mean without rules. It does not mean chaos. It does not mean disorder. It does not mean, quote unquote, lawlessness when it comes to moral law. It literally means without rulers, without masters, and archon, without masters, meaning no masters, no slaves. And if you say the phrase no masters, no slaves to the average person, and you say word association game, tell me the first word that comes to your mind when I say no masters, no slaves, they'll say freedom. But I just gave you the etymological meaning of a word from its root language, and the word literally means without masters. And yet people think it means chaos and lawlessness and disorder instead of what it really means, freedom. That is what the word anarchy actually means by its very definition. So we have to understand the solution is living in a society, in a state of existence where we don't have a master class and a slave class, a ruling class and a ruled class. All of us are already ruled by natural law, and we need to simply bring our behaviors into alignment with those laws by thinking, feeling, and doing what is right. Yet this is the perpetual, continued human condition of slavery. And we have had this kind of slavery in this very country. Hard ball and chain, whip and murder, full physical enslavement of human beings right here in this country. Part of what this kind of forced labor was used to build a lot of the infrastructure of this country. We are not in the state right now where we have this kind of slavery taking place all around us, but we're going to move toward it again. We're going to move toward it again as a karmic consequence of what we allowed here, and a karmic consequence of, as an aggregate people, of allowing the soft form of slavery called government to continue. Because it is never going to stop its march toward total totalitarianism unless we morally straighten up and educate everyone regarding moral principles. And that slavery in any form is wrong, no matter how you euphemize it. So this is the continuing human condition, and the great work is to end that condition. That is what the great work is, and that's why so few people want any part of it. Because it's not the lighthearted little party. It's the one great work. Just to tell people, not that it matters, because you know what? Too many people are focused on dollar signs and value being only in monetary units. But just to tell people, just so you have an idea of the kind of financial situation I have foregone to do this work. I actually sat one day and calculated the amount of money that all of the work that I've ever done in What on Earth is Happening by man hours and the type of work that it is. I calculated the going rates and the amount of man hours that I've done in What on Earth is Happening. You want to take a guess of how much money I would have made if I would have been paid to do the type of technological work that I've done with What on Earth is Happening? $330,000. Try again, sir. $500,000. Try again. Way higher. Way higher. $3.5 million. I made $13,000 last year on What on Earth is Happening work. Yeah. No, I mean, seriously, like, no one should really clap about that, you know? Like I certainly probably should have made the former number instead of the latter one, okay? But what we do is we reward basketball players and football players and, you know, pop music artists, you know? That's what we reward and put up on a pedestal and reward financially, because that's what the people of this world find value in. People come up to me all the time, Mark, why aren't you doing way better? Why are you living like you're living? Why are you living so meagerly? You know, because that's how much people have valued this work in the world. And I don't do this for monetary value. I could care less. I'm going to continue to do this if it costs me money to do it, which it did initially in the initial years. You know? So that's not my motivating factor. My motivating factor is to end this condition. Too many people have this idea of, I have to be rewarded financially to do this. I liken it to somebody standing in a war ditch while the enemy is raining fire down upon them, and people are saying, here, take this weapon, fire back, and they're going, pay me first. It's that ridiculous. But it's just something that I wanted to say about what people find value in and what they don't find value in. And that's part of the problem. Slavery is a claim of ownership on your person, the product of your labor or your possessions in whole or in part. All natural rights are property rights. Understood properly, all rights are property rights. Because all wrongdoing is theft. It's the taking of some form of property. Understanding this is fundamental to understanding the condition of slavery. We all own ourselves and have the right to live freely and exercise our natural rights, provided actions we perform do not infringe upon another person's rights. Anyone who dares to try to stop people from living within these natural rights is making a direct claim of ownership upon that other being, which is the very definition of slavery. Those who do this or condone this are tyrants and should be treated as such. This is no light matter, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I told you, get into a somber, serious mindset about the topics I'm going to talk about and discuss today, because this is extremely serious and should be taken as such. The people who are doing what they are doing have no right to do these coercive and immoral behaviors and conduct them upon the human population. And we have every right to end that state. And ladies and gentlemen, get as offended by this next statement and slide all you want, but here are the enforcers of slavery in the modern world. The police and the military are the enforcers of slavery. I don't care who you know that's in the police or military. I don't care who you like that's in the police or military. I don't care what kind of relationship you have with people that are in the police and military. I will look any member of the police and military in the eyes directly to their face and tell them that they are the enforcer of worldwide slavery. Because that is the truth. They work for the interests of the ruling class and the dictates of the ruling class. Period, the end. And until these people walk away from their immoral jobs, humanity is going to remain enslaved, or it's going to take something that is going to be extremely negative and ugly for everyone to end the condition of slavery, which I don't want to see it come to. The great work is to get these people to quit their cult. That's what the great work is. It's to get people to quit these cults, because that's what they are cults. They're satanic cults. And to get the people who condone these cults to stop condoning the behaviors of these cults. If you're not familiar with my work on order followers, which is what these people are, that's why they do what they do. They don't want to think for themselves. They don't want to reason right and wrong for themselves. They want to listen to what other people tell them to do and then just do it because that's a cop-out and an easy answer, and they think that that somehow absolves them of their personal responsibility and moral culpability. I put out this a few years back called The Cult of Ultimate Evil, Order Followers and the Destruction of the Sacred Feminine, which is the true heart-based care energy within all of us, which gets murdered in these cult members so that they can go out and perform the behaviors that they perform like the automaton robots that they are. So this is another critical video for people to take in and understand the concepts in it. The police and the military are the modern equivalent of house slaves of the Civil War era period. They are the people who are keeping the system of slavery in place. And they do this through duress, which is the first part of the 3 parts of this presentation: duress, dissidence, and deadly force.